The airport was alive with the hum of voices, rolling luggage, and boarding announcements bouncing off the tall glass walls. Travelers rushed through security lines and crowded into boarding areas, their eyes on departure boards glowing with numbers and destinations. But for Captain Maya Johnson, tonight was not about being another face in the crowd. Tonight, she was responsible for guiding hundreds of lives safely from one city to the next. Maya was a black woman in her late 30s, wearing the crisply pressed navy uniform of a commercial airline captain. Her posture was confident, her eyes focused, her walk steady. Everything about her spoke of discipline and command. She had been flying for over 15 years, logging thousands of hours in cockpits across the world. She had weathered thunderstorms, rerouted through emergencies, and handled mechanical failures with nerves of steel. But tonight, her challenge would not be the sky or the machine. It would come from the people around her. As she strode into the crew meeting room, pulling her cap from under her arm, conversations dimmed. A few of the crew members smiled warmly, those who knew her well, who had flown under her leadership before. But others shifted uneasily, some exchanging glances that weren't subtle. A whisper floated just loud enough to reach her ears. "She's flying us tonight?" Maya didn't flinch. She had heard it before. She had fought for every step in this career, in an industry where only a fraction of airline captains looked like her. Still, hearing doubt sting in the air never grew easier. She straightened, placing her cap firmly on her head. "Good evening, crew," she said, her voice clear and professional. "Flight 927 to Seattle. Weather is clear, flight time is 4 hours and 10 minutes. Let's keep communication tight and the passengers comfortable." A flight attendant in her mid-40s raised her brows. "Captain, not to be rude, but are you sure you've got this route covered? Seattle's weather can be tricky this time of year." Maya met her gaze evenly. "I've flown into Seattle 78 times in my career. I know the route. You can rest assured I've got it covered." Some of the crew nodded with relief, but another attendant muttered under her breath. "We'll see." The pre-boarding proceeded. Maya walked onto the aircraft, her heels clicking softly on the jet bridge, and entered the cockpit. Her first officer, a younger man named Rick, was already there. He greeted her with a polite smile, but his eyes betrayed hesitation. "Evening, Captain," he said. "I wasn't sure, they told me you were assigned tonight." "That's correct," Maya replied smoothly, sliding into her seat. "We'll go over the flight plan together. Let's make sure we're aligned." Rick nodded but shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the checklist as though searching for reassurance. Maya noticed, but she said nothing. She had learned long ago that respect wasn't won with words, it was proven in the air. The boarding process began. Passengers filed onto the plane, stowing bags, settling into seats. Some smiled at Maya as they glimpsed her in the cockpit. Others paused, surprised, eyes widening as though they hadn't expected to see a black woman commanding the aircraft. A few even whispered audibly, "She's the pilot?" The whispers pricked at Maya's composure. She had fought through military training, through commercial certification, through years of doubt, to reach this seat. And still, every flight seemed to bring the same disbelief. She breathed slowly, focusing on the pre-flight sequence. But the murmurs grew louder when a passenger in business class, a stocky man in a gray suit, demanded to speak with a supervisor. "This is unacceptable," he said, his voice carrying through the cabin. "You're telling me she's the captain? I'm not trusting my life on this plane if she's flying it." The cabin grew tense. Heads turned. Phones came out to record. The flight attendants tried to calm him, but he refused, his voice rising. "I've flown hundreds of times. I've never seen this. I don't feel safe." In the cockpit, Rick glanced at Maya. Should I handle this?" Maya shook her head. She unbuckled her harness, rose, and stepped into the cabin. Her presence commanded attention. She stood tall, her uniform immaculate, her gaze steady. "Sir," she said, her tone calm but unyielding, "I am Captain Johnson. I will be piloting this aircraft tonight. I am fully certified, with more than 15 years of experience, and over 10,000 flight hours logged. Your safety, and that of every passenger, is my top priority. If you are not comfortable with that, you are welcome to deplane." A hush fell over the cabin. The man's face reddened, caught between anger and embarrassment. He sputtered, "This is ridiculous. I want a different pilot." Maya's eyes didn't waver. "That won't be happening. This flight is under my command." The man faltered. Some passengers applauded softly, others murmured in support. Maya nodded, turned, and returned to the cockpit without waiting for his reply. Back in her seat, her hands moved smoothly over the controls, but her jaw was tight. She had faced storms before, but this storm was different. This storm was human, personal, filled with the sting of prejudice. And yet, in the back of her mind, she knew that the true test of the night had not yet come. As the engines roared to life and the plane taxied down the runway, the tension still hung in the air. But Maya focused forward, her hands steady, her eyes sharp. Takeoff was smooth, the plane lifting into the night sky, Seattle-bound. For the first hour, the flight was uneventful, cruising above clouds tinged with silver moonlight. Passengers settled into sleep or entertainment. The earlier confrontation seemed to fade. But at 36,000 feet, the real crisis began. An alert blared in the cockpit, warning lights flashing red. Hydraulic pressure was dropping on one of the critical systems. Rick's voice cracked with alarm. "Captain, we've got a major hydraulic failure." Maya's mind snapped into high focus. She had trained for this, drilled for it, lived for it. But it was one of the most dangerous failures an aircraft could face, threatening everything from landing gear to flight controls. Her hands flew across switches, her voice crisp. "Run the checklist. Confirm system integrity. Diverting course options now." Rick scrambled, his nerves showing, but Maya's voice anchored the cockpit. Calm. Commanding. Unshaken. In the cabin, turbulence rattled trays and jolted passengers awake. The nervous businessman clutched his armrests, eyes wide. "What's happening?" he demanded of the flight attendants. Over the intercom, Maya's voice flowed, steady, composed. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We are experiencing a technical issue, but my crew and I are fully trained and prepared to handle it. I ask that you remain calm and seated with your seatbelts fastened. Your safety is my priority." Her tone carried no hint of fear, only assurance. Passengers exhaled, tension easing slightly. But inside the cockpit, the situation was dire. Hydraulic fluid continued to drop. Landing would be near impossible without full system control. Rick's hands shook as he stammered. "Captain, I don't know if we can." Maya cut him off gently but firmly. "We can. Follow my lead." She rerouted systems, executed manual overrides, her hands precise. The aircraft groaned unsteady, but she coaxed it back into stability. Meanwhile, air traffic control crackled in her headset. "Flight 927, we're seeing your emergency signals. State intentions." Maya replied clear and calm. "Declaring emergency. Requesting immediate landing clearance at Denver. Hydraulics compromised. 210 souls on board." The cabin descended into silence as the plane turned. The businessman who had doubted her earlier now gripped his seat, sweat on his brow. Every passenger knew their lives depended on the captain in the cockpit. Minutes stretched like hours as the plane approached Denver. The runway was lit like a beacon, fire trucks lining its edges. Inside, passengers whispered prayers, held hands, and braced. In the cockpit, Maya's focus sharpened to a point. The plane resisted her every command, controls heavy and sluggish. Rick's voice trembled as he read the checklist, but Maya's hands were steady. "Gear down," she ordered. The mechanisms groaned, partially deploying. "Manual override. Keep it steady." The runway loomed closer, lights streaking past the windows. Maya's voice never wavered. "We're going to land this. Trust me." The plane touched down hard, tires screeching, metal groaning. Sparks flew as the gear struggled, but Maya's grip was unbreakable. She fought the controls, coaxing the aircraft straight, slowing, until finally, with a violent shudder, it came to a halt on the runway. For a long moment, silence. Then the cabin erupted into cheers, sobs, applause. Passengers clung to one another, overcome with relief. The businessman sat frozen, tears in his eyes. Slowly, he whispered, "She saved us." In the cockpit, Maya exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Her shoulders relaxed, her eyes closing briefly in silent thanks. She turned to Rick, whose hands still shook. "We did it," she said softly. He nodded, voice hoarse. "No, Captain. You did it." When the doors opened and passengers disembarked, many paused to thank her personally. Some shook her hand with tears streaming down their faces. Others simply whispered, "Thank you." And then, the businessman approached. His arrogance was gone, replaced by humility. He couldn't meet her eyes at first. "Captain Johnson," he said finally, voice trembling, "I owe you my life. I was wrong. I judged you without knowing anything about you. And tonight, you proved me wrong in every way." Maya studied him, her gaze firm but not unkind. "Remember that feeling," she said quietly. "Because lives depend on respect, not prejudice." He nodded, unable to reply, and walked away. In the aftermath, news outlets picked up the story. Black female captain saves hundreds after in-flight emergency. Social media lit up with praise, with clips of passengers describing her calm leadership, with debates about representation in aviation. For many, Maya Johnson became a symbol not just of survival, but of triumph against doubt. And though Maya herself didn't seek fame, she knew this night mattered. Not just for her, but for every little girl who might look at a pilot's uniform and think, "That could be me." Because at the end of the day, respect isn't about uniforms, or color, or gender. It's about skill, courage, and the strength to rise above doubt, even when the sky itself seems to be falling. And Captain Maya Johnson proved, beyond any shadow of prejudice, that when the storm hits hardest, true leadership always rises.